Hey friend, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here listening to another episode of the Pattern Design Circle podcast. Here we talk all about the ins and outs of designing knit and crochet patterns and running a business that makes it all possible. I'm Jessica, your host, knitting pattern designer, design mentor, and the friend in your ear. Can't wait to dive right in. The Pattern Design Circle podcast is sponsored by the Pattern Design Circle, a membership community for knit and crochet pattern designers that are feeling lost, lonely, or frustrated in their business. It connects you with a supportive community that's always eager to answer your questions and help you through the hard times. And there's loads of resources and activities specifically catered to business and designing. Sound like your jam? Check it out at snickerdoodleknits.com/design-circle. That's snickerdoodle, like the cookie, knits, knits.com/design-circle. All right, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the Pattern Design Circle podcast for yet another episode. I am so excited that you are here and that I am here chatting in your ear. Oh, it's so fun. I always love recording these podcasts. I get so passionate about business and about pattern designing and all of the things. And I'm so excited to share it with you. And today is no different. Today we are talking about how to understand your brand. But before we get into that, I want to go ahead and establish what I'm talking about when I refer to your brand. Basically, it's everything to do with your business and how you're going to market your business, what you share your business, what your business actually is and does. And so the reason it's really important to understand your brand is because it affects everything. It affects your sales pages. It affects how you market. It affects where you market. It affects who you market. It affects how you word everything. It affects your colors and your photos and all of these different things, all as part of your brand. So I am a little bit concerned that I am, creating too big of a topic with this topic as one podcast. We will see how long this takes. But I think it's really, really important to just have it all as one discussion and talk about all of these different parts that are part of your brand, the different parts that you have to understand to really even have a clear picture of what your brand is. So settle in, go ahead and grab your favorite beverage or you're knitting, all of the things, so we can talk about your brand. A lot of times, folks, I don't know how common this still is anymore, but it used to be a lot of times when people thought of their brand, they thought of logos, they thought of color palette, they thought of fonts, like the things you put on your website, and, a pretty artificial thought of what a brand is, only thinking of the aesthetics, where your brand really is so much more. Your brand incorporates all of the meat and potatoes of your business. So, in my mind, there are 3 different parts that you need to understand your brand. So we will start with part 1, which is understanding who you are. If you've listened to a bunch of my past podcasts, you know that I talk about this a fair bit. It is so important to understand who you are before you can understand what your business is, what your business does, all of those kinds of things. So point A, and really this is something, if there's anybody listening here who you're not a designer yet, you don't have a business yet, but you're like, I'm kind of interested in starting a business. This is actually a really good place to start, is looking at yourself. I will say that all of this information that I'm sharing in this podcast, it is okay if you do not have it perfectly clear the first time you go through it. You will likely want to go through this over and over and over and over and over again in your business. There are big coaches out there who go through their brand foundations every single year, just because it's so important to be clear on it, in order to be able to do anything in your business, to make sure that what you're creating aligns with it, to make sure your marketing aligns with it, and your products and all of the things. And it can change slightly even within the span of a year. A year can be a short time, but it also can be a long time. And so don't be scared or hesitant to come back and revisit this. What I will say, from my personal experience, try to revisit the same place that you wrote it. So, like if you wrote it on a piece of paper, if you wrote it in your computer, when you decide to revisit this information, go back to that document. What happened for me was I did these exercises like I don't know how many different times with different coaches on their webinars and podcasts and emails and, whatever, all the free things that I was consuming. So I had like bits and pieces of this scattered all over in 20 different places, and it just wasn't super cohesive until I finally went through and made the effort to go through everything at the same time together to make it cohesive so that all of the parts are actually fitting together in a way that feels really good to me, and so that I'm clear on it. So, I was a little mini tangent rant, but yes, don't be scared if you don't know how to answer things. I'll try to explain through some of this, part of my journey, and even though I had done this work where there were some places where I really wasn't clear, and I really believe that so much of our business clarity comes in the doing. There's only so much that we can understand and decide up front. Some of it we have to work through to decide this works for me and this doesn't work for me. This fits me and this doesn't fit me. You might think going into something that it's going to be a wonderful fit, and you start working in it and it's like, yeah, no, thank you. And that's okay. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel okay. It's okay to feel frustrated. But don't feel ashamed about changing your mind about it taking some time to receive clarity. Now, if you have been in your business multiple years and you're really ready to get clear on all of this stuff, it'll probably be easier for you because you have an idea of what's working and what doesn't work and all of that kind of stuff. So, all right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into part one, which is understanding who you are. This is really diving into what your interests are, what your passion is, what are you really good at, what are your strengths, what are your skills, what is your expertise, what do you have a lot of experience in? And then from there, it's looking at what makes you unique. And then ultimately, I think the last part of this section is your why. Why are you wanting to run a business? Why are you wanting to design patterns? Why is this important to you? What are you wanting to get out of it? I feel like this section, talking about it, is one of the shortest sections, but it can be one of the most important. And it's one that I think is probably where I've experienced the most growth in my business. When I started my business, which was almost 4 years ago, right now this is recording August of 2022. I started as an Etsy shop in October of 2018. So that's crazy. But I really didn't understand. I had an engineering degree. I'm good at math. I knew I was always good at not designing. I always knew I was good at mentoring and teaching kind of things. I always thought I was going to be a teacher, and then I went into engineering. I knew I really enjoyed math, but I had this craving for creativity, and that was really why I had started a business. I was trying to find a way to fit all of these different parts together. It was also, full transparency, a lot about my social anxiety and how difficult it felt to work in a quote unquote real job situation. And being able to run my own business helped me a ton with my mental health. So anyway, why I was sharing that is because when I first started doing this work, like 4 years ago, before I started Snickerdoodle Knits, I knew that I had these interests. Okay, I'm interested in knitting. I'm interested in making. I don't really think I'm actually an expert in creativity. I'm not artistic, but I am good at math. And I know that deep down, I'm really good at helping people. And I had no idea how in the world that translated into my business. But it was something that just kept nagging me every single time I did this work. I knew I'm good at helping people. So in 2020, maybe it was 2020 actually, January, I had started a membership for knitters where I was basically providing classes and stuff. And only a few months in, I realized this is not a good fit. I thought it was going to be perfect because, I was a designer by that point. And I was really good at the teaching, mentoring, coaching kind of work. But it wasn't my passion. And then that must have been in 2021. Anyway, within a few months after I had decided, okay, this isn't the thing for me, I finally realized what I'm really passionate about is helping designers and about all of this marketing business stuff. And so eventually, like May 2021, so timeline wise, we go from October 2018 to May 21. Finally, it all made sense to me how this was supposed to fit together, how this part of me that seems to be an innate ability to help people, how that connected with the business that I'm creating. And when that aligned, it felt right. And in so many ways, I say like it's more than I could have ever dreamt. Just amazing how it all felt once it fit together. So the reason I share that is to say that, it took me almost 3 years, at least 2.5 years, to really understand, okay, how does my strengths and my skills fit in with the rest of this picture? And that is to give you reassurance that it is okay if you don't understand how all the pieces are going together. Don't try to adjust your answers here to fit into the business you want to create. This is really about, I'm so passionate about creating businesses that you are excited about, that you are passionate about, and that are aligned with who you are and what you want to do and be. So when you're going through this, looking at your passions and your interests and your strengths and your skills and your expertise, just list everything. Whatever you have done in past versions of yourself, what do you have experience with? What are your skills? What are you good at? So I now don't remember if I want to read my last two bullets for this section, but if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. But all of that together is how you then determine what makes you unique. And just FYI, often we don't realize that what makes us unique is actually unique. We live with us every single day. It's normal to us. So it's okay if what makes you unique doesn't feel that special. That doesn't mean that it's not special. So for me, I realized early on that really what makes me unique is that I'm compassionate, I'm empathetic, I'm really interested in helping people. And so then it was just a matter of, okay, how do I align everything in my business to fit me correctly and to fit my goals and all of that. The other thing in this section is knowing your why. Why are you doing this? What do you want to get out of it? Why are you wanting to run your own business? Why are you wanting to design patterns? And that will really allow you to align your business to fit your needs, your wants, and your desires. All right, part 2 of how to understand your brand is to understand what it is that you do. So if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably a knit or crochet pattern designer. that seems pretty explanatory, right? I design patterns. Um, but what makes your patterns unique? What makes you unique? Is it a certain kind of yarn that you use? Is it certain kind of techniques that you use? Is it certain types of designs that you create? Is it the way that you approach it and write your patterns? All of these different things are different approaches that you can take to pattern design that make what you do unique. Once you've figured out what makes makes what you do unique, this is when I really encourage you to start thinking about your ideal customer. It can be one of those things that coaches really harp on you to do right away. But I feel like it's really important to understand who you are and what you're doing before you can understand who you're helping or who you want to help. So I do think that who it is that you're helping falls under this category of what you do. It has to do with why you're creating what you're creating, and how what you're creating helps the people that you want to help. So if you're not familiar with ideal customers, the gist of it is these are the people that you really are trying to create for. And so what that means is, some of my past podcasts go in far more depth than this, but you understand what this person or the ideal customer is meant to be, a person in your head that you can visualize and understand. It can be exactly like somebody it can be a past version of yourself, but the idea is you understand this person really well because you understand what they want, you understand what they need, and you understand why they are struggling to get that thing. So these are desires, struggles, pain points, and your work is being created to address these desires, these struggles, and these pain points of your ideal customer. It is very, very, very important to understand how your work is helping your ideal customer so that you know exactly how to talk to them. So that on your sales page, you can address their pain points and their struggles in your social media content or your newsletter content. You can address specifically their struggles and their pain points so that they understand that you get them and that you have the solution that they need and they want. And then the third bullet I have here under understanding what you do is to understand how what you do helps your ideal customer. So how is it that you are addressing their pain point or their desire or their struggle? And how are you moving them to the point of where they want to be? So here they're at point A, struggling with, let's say, they cannot seem to figure out how to cast on for a knitting pattern. You are going to create XYZ, maybe it's a tutorial, maybe it's a blog post, to help them understand how to get to point B. Did I say A or 1? I don't know. Now you're at the second point. So now they've gone from their struggle point to what they're wanting to feel. This is so important to understand that your products, everything that you're creating is helping your ideal customer. You have to know what you're helping them with, where they're starting, where you're bringing them to, and how you are going to get them there. All of that is really the whole package that you are trying to sell to your customers. So I wish this was interactive so I could ask, do you have any questions? If you do have questions, go ahead and message me at Pattern Design Circle on Instagram. I'm more than happy to help you out. But yeah, this is the second part of understanding your brand, is to really understand what you do in depth beyond I design knitting patterns. So for me, I started off with I design knitting patterns that are engaging and walk the knitter step by step through the pattern confidently or something like that. I don't remember word for word what I said. But a lot of what I was really focused on was this building confidence in knitters. So I had tutorials, I had my patterns, and I wrote my patterns with the intention that it really was super clear exactly what they should do, what how they should follow the pattern, what they needed to do to really get the end result. Now, I've moved more towards I realize that, this empathetic, compassionate part of me was a part that was telling a lot of stories around mental health and around just life experiences that we all can relate to, things of hope and of loneliness and of gratitude and all of these different emotions. And so now what I do is I'm really focused on telling the relatable stories of living through my patterns. So how I help my ideal customer is to make them feel understood and seen and heard so they don't feel alone, so that they feel confident that they can talk to somebody about what's going on. And so they really understand that it's not something that's wrong with them. It's just something that not enough people are talking about. And at the same time, I'm working to encourage them to find little pieces of hope and gratitude and things like that in their lives. So that is part two, understanding what you do. Now the third and final part, this is the longer part, is understanding your business. That sounds really broad, doesn't it? Kind of is. But when we're talking about understanding your brand, I think it's important first to understand who you are, second to understand what you do, and then third to understand your business as a large whole. So this includes understanding your mission. What are you trying to do with your business? So like for the pattern design circle, for me, my mission is to empower knit and crochet pattern designers who are feeling lost, lonely, frustrated, and overwhelmed in their business to come to a place where they are feeling empowered to make confident decisions that align with what they want and where they want their business to go, what their goals are. So what is your mission? What are you trying to do for the folks that are making your patterns? Second of all, how is your business building connection with your audience, with your ideal customer? What I mean by this is how are you building that like, know, trust factor so that they trust you. They're interested in following you on social media or your email list so that they're actually interested in buying from you. What are the pieces that are connecting points between you and them? How are you going to convey the fact that you understand where they're at and where they want to go and that you can help them? And that is also addressed in some of the other points I'm going to share here in your pillars and containers and story and things like that. But then you want to know how you are going to show up in your business. So you understand now who you are, you understand what you create, what your ideal customer needs, but now how are you going to show up in your business? Are you showing up with authority as like an educational, coaching, teaching kind of person? Are you showing up as a more empathetic, compassionate friend kind of person? How are you showing up? What is it that you are wanting to portray through your business when you show up? We also have your business values. What do you think is really important as it relates to the what you create, as it relates to your business? What are your values? Maybe for me, it's always had to do with compassion and connection, and collaboration. Those are all very strong values I hold in my business, and affect what I create and how I talk about the things that I create. So just a little bit ago, I mentioned your brand pillars, containers, story. These are all different parts of your business. So let's break that down. Your brand pillars are really what you do in your business. So, like for photographers, they have their welcome introductory call kind of thing. They have their planning the shoot, they have their actual shoot, they have editing the photos, and then they have delivering the photos. For us as pattern designers, it probably looks something more like the idea phase, creating your idea, and then writing the pattern, testing the pattern, and tech editing. And then maybe you have things like creating tutorials and adding tips into your patterns. So the pillars are really, really what you do in your business. And that gives you clarity on what you're doing, but it also gives you content on what you can share about. Those are all different parts and pieces that you could talk about in your emails and on social media and in so many things that you create as content. Now, brand containers they can be overlapping. Brand containers really are meant to be social media type topics, email type topics, content topics. It's not necessarily what you're doing day to day, but it's the things that you want to talk about in your business. So it could be a couple of things that specifically just relate to your ideal customer, that they're interested in talking about and you're interested in talking about. So that could be things like travel, motherhood, maybe something like photography. You only want to have a couple of those kinds of topics, though. Don't make it all about just what you're interested about, because you do also need to talk about your business. You need to talk about what you create. So, excuse me. I am so sorry. I keep yawning. I just got off a 2-hour call a little bit ago, so I apologize. Anyway, so brand containers, it's more looking at what you want to focus your attention on, what you really want to share with your customers. Where the pillars are talking about really what holds your business up. Let's get into construction. So pillars, columns, they're meant to hold up structure above it. If it's at a lower level, then it's holding up higher levels. If maybe it's just holding up the roof, but it's holding things up. So your pillars are really the fundamental pieces of what you do to actually make your business run. The containers are more like different pockets of information that you can choose from for your social media and newsletters and things like that. So I hope that makes sense. Your brand containers can include things like tutorials. It can include things like behind the scenes, but it doesn't have to be all specifically about your patterns, or about designing or knitting. You can have a couple other interest points in there that your ideal customer is really interested in, just to help build that connection, like no trust factor. All right, and then we have our story. Story is so powerful in connecting with your audience. I really, really shows that you are human and that they are human and that you can understand each other. It shares how you can relate to their story, how maybe you've been through what they've been through, how you can help them, all of that kind of thing. So it is important to understand your business story because you want to share your business story with your audience regularly. This can be how you got into business. It can be why you're passionate about your business. And it can really be about how you're addressing the struggles, the pain points, and the desires of your ideal customer. All right. Now, the last thing is, how does your brand, your business, make people feel? And this is the part that folks really kind of think of when they think of the brand. So, first of all, I recommend making a list of 5 emotions, 4 to 5 emotions that you want your customers to feel, or anyone in general, when they come across your content. So maybe they come to your Instagram feed and they scroll through some of your photos and reels and captions, and what do you want them to feel? Maybe they come to your website and they're reading a few different pages. What do you want them to feel? Maybe they're working through your pattern. What do you want them to feel? So this can be things like, I want them to feel confident. I want them to feel empowered. I want them to feel understood. I want them to feel relaxed. I want them to feel, I don't know, my brain stopped there. But then you can also have different things like how you want it to feel as far as genuine or authentic or natural or personable or professional, or things like modern or earthy, or maybe it's like mountain vibes or beach vibes or city vibes. What are these different kinds of aspects that you really want people to feel when they come across your brand? And those answers, along with everything else, but especially those answers, are how you will then choose your colors, fonts, all of that. So when it comes to creating the aesthetics of your brand, now that you have all of this information on what is important to your ideal customer, what you are creating, and how you want them to feel, I keep saying it sounds like F-I-L-L, and it's F-E-E-L, how you want them to feel. Once you have all of that information, I recommend going somewhere like Google or Pinterest and starting to pull images of really what you want people to feel when they are consuming your content. So do you want them to feel like they're all cozied up in a dark corner with a candlelight scenery and a book and knitting or something like that? Or would you rather them feel like they're out in open pasture with the bright sun on them, green grass, and they're frolicking, I don't know, in their hand knit sweater? um, what do you want them to really feel? Because having that clarity is going to help you so much in your content creation and really, really building connection with your customer. The emotions, also be sure to include those, remember those when you're creating content that is written, not just aesthetics. All right, so we got the mood board created now. From that, we're kind of simultaneously decide what colors you want. Typically, it's recommended that you have 2 bold kind of primary colors, primary not being color wheel, primary being prominent colors, and then have a couple of colors that are accent colors that aren't maybe as bold, and then have figured out a couple of different neutrals, white, gray, black kind of colors. Then we move into fonts. You want to have 2 to 3 fonts typically. You want to be able to have a font for your headings and just for things that you want to accent, and then have your typical font. You can choose graphics, like if you're on Canva, there's a lot of different graphics for just little images that you might want to use in your content. Um, Decide on your image style. So I want my images to look vintage, or I want them to look modern, or I want them to look industrial, all those different kinds of things. You can choose now what kind of props you want in your images. Do you want books or water or plants or just natural elements in general? Do you want wood or stone or marble? All of those different things that affect the mood that they're going to feel when they see your content. And then the last thing I have on this list is your logo. I feel like logos are getting increasingly unimportant, but you can have your logo on your website. If you really want, you can have it on your social media. I recommend having your face on your social media instead. And then, like, when somebody has your website open, of course, I don't remember the actual name of this, but there's the little circular icon. Well, I guess it's not always circular. I'm looking at the tabs right now that I have open on my website on my computer. But there's just a little icon. You can use your logo there. So it doesn't have to be a perfect logo. You don't have to spend lots of money on it. But I find it helpful just every once in a while there's a purpose I need a logo for, so you can create that. Canva, if you're not familiar, is a really nice place for putting all of this together if you aren't like a graphic designer who has Illustrator and InDesign and all of those kinds of platforms. In Canva, you can just search logo and they have different logo ideas, and then you can just customize it to what you would like. They also have brand boards, mood boards, that you can use to kind of create a template of what you want your brand to look like. I find it so helpful to have all of this information all on one page as a mood board, brand board. I guess brand board is maybe the more correct, accurate description. But on there, I have my fonts. I have the colors with the hex codes. So if I need to get that color somewhere else, I know how to get that exact color. And then the graphics that kind of are the vibe of that brand, and images that relay that brand vibe. Then on Canva, because I have my mood boards, my brand boards on Canva, I have additional pages in that same document that then talk about my mission, my purpose, my brand containers, my brand values, my brand story, brand pillars, all of these different things, so that when I want to go back and revisit them, they're all in the same place. Or when I'm maybe struggling to create a content idea, or I'm really wanting to make sure I'm covering all of the different things that I want to cover in my business, I can go back to this and be like, oh yeah, I haven't talked about XYZ in a while. I should talk about that. So I hope that this was really helpful in talking about how to understand your brand. First, understand who you are, what you're excited about, what you really want, and why. And then understand what you do, what is it that you create, what makes it unique, how are you helping people, and who are you helping? And then understand your business, the mission behind your business, the values and the pillars and containers, and all the different content pieces that you want in your business. This is really the overarching part of everything that you're going to create, whether it's content for social media, for your newsletter, or your patterns, or additional content like tutorials or courses, things like that. So I really, really hope that this was very helpful. I hope that I didn't go on too many tangents for you, but yes, let me know if you found it helpful. Go ahead and connect with me at Pattern Design Circle. And again, thank you so much for joining me for another podcast. So happy to have you here. And I really, 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 really hope that this was really helpful, because this is important stuff that can keep us bogged down for a long time, feeling like we don't have clarity, things like that. But again, don't be afraid to come back to this later and change your mind over and over again. It's okay if it's not perfect right away, or ever. We're humans running businesses, and it's the way it goes. So thanks again for joining me, and I will chat with you again on the next episode. Wow, thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you found it valuable, please share the podcast with a designer friend. And if you have a minute, leave a review. It's so helpful for me and means the world to me. Chat soon.